Om Shanti. Om Panyu. Let's do the four, the four immeasurables. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Sem jendam je dewa tang dewe ju tang den pa ju jig, dungal tang dungal ju ju tang drawa ju jig, dungal mepe dewa tampa tang mindrawa ju jig, nearing chak tang ni tang drawe chang yung je bola ni pa ju jig. So everybody, we've come to another section. I won't do too many of these, the Maha Guru prayer, because I think then, but what I'd like to really do, I've called it again A to Z in the Dharma, because it contains absolutely everything. And Yeshe Tsogyal'S treasure Maha Guru prayer. So I know it's been quite a gap since we last had it, so I'm just going to give you a little summary of it all, but I want to go on to some new verses as well, because I think it's really important that we go on and you can go back in your own time. But we're back to examine this Dharma treasure teaching found by Pema Lingpa. And I hope you use it in your everyday prayers, because not only does each line contain the wisdom that we need to live our lives, but we must keep remembering, and this is so important, you know, apropos our discussion, Bern, when you said there's certain topics you really relate to. Of course, there are topics each one relates to, but this topic of this prayer has actually got absolutely everything in the Dharma in it, everything. And so every Dharma is discovered at the particular time as just precisely what is needed for beings at that moment with what's going on at that moment. So if we're looking at it, it's at that moment. And I was listening to a tape by Ringu Tulku, and very interestingly enough, he said, the more degenerate the age, the more the age of degeneration is there, the more powerful Guru Rinpoche's Dharma teaching becomes. Now that's so interesting, because as you watch the planet deteriorating and people degenerating, so these actual teachings become very much more powerful. They are actually made for the time that people don't understand anything. And so it's absolutely amazing that we've got that. And I want to start today with a beautiful story. Let me get it. It's called The Mountain and the River, and it goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a mighty mountain that had remained firmly and unchangingly in its position for eons. Its majestic peak rose high into the sky, its face sheltering the many animals and plants that sought refuge on its slopes. The mountain was proud of its steadfastness and strength. At the foot of the mountain flowed a bubbling river that was constantly in motion. Its waters flowed day in and day out, always moving, always seeking the sea. The river was proud of its freedom and its ability to constantly change. One day the mountain said to the river, "You are always on the move, never in one place. Isn't it tiring to always be searching?" The river replied, "And you are always standing still, never moving. Isn't it boring to always stay in one place?" The mountain thought about it and said, "Maybe you're right, but I have the strength and constancy that you don't have." The river laughed and replied, "And I have the flexibility and freedom that you don't." So time passed, and both the mountain and river began to respect each other and appreciate what the other had to offer. They realized that although they were different, they were both necessary and valuable. One day, a severe drought came and the river began to dry up. The mountain offered its help by providing the river with the little water it could store in its caves and crevices. When a huge storm came the next spring, the river offered its help by absorbing and draining the excess water to prevent flooding on the slopes of the mountain. And so the mountain and the river lived in harmony with each other, each with their unique characteristics and abilities, and they realized that their differences did not separate them, but helped them to support each other and thrive. And this is the story of the mountain and the river, a meeting of opposites that teaches, despite our differences, we can live together in harmony and learn from each other. Now, I want to start with this story because it's not only about opposites. It's a good story to take some philosophy when people are very different to you and you put the question mark on. But the reason why I chose that story is for a deeper reason, so that we can start to understand the essence, the Dharmakaya essence, which is called kada, and the spontaneous presence, which is called lundro. Now, we need to see how the absolute empty essence, how it relates with the spontaneous presence, which is everything that comes out of it, everything that is there, everything that is expressed both in the relative world and the ultimate world comes out of the essence. And we need to see and understand how these two interact with each other and how all the moving appearances are constantly changing and then dissolving back into the essence. You can't stay in calm abiding and think that you can be enlightened, because it's the interaction between the emptiness and the appearance that must be fully comprehended if we want to be enlightened. When we look at the difference between sentient beings and Buddhas, sentient beings only understand the expression, the movement. That's all they understand. And that's called the relative truth. But Buddhas or awakened beings are fully aware of the ultimate truth and fully aware of the relative truth so that they can help and serve. Now, this is such an important point, and I have such a beautiful article on this from Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, but I'm not going to give that to you now because it's going to detract from me. It's not going to detract, but it's going to take up the time, and then we won't get through the prayer at all. But when we have the discussion next week, if this fascinates you as it fascinates me, then ask me the question next week about Kadak and Lundro, the spontaneous, essence and spontaneous presence. Ask me about that, and then I will give you some stuff from that article, because that article, when I first read it from Tulku Urgyen, I was completely blown away. And I really, really think that this is something we have to spend a lot of our time on. Because if we understand that interaction, and that's why I gave you the story of the mountain and the river, because if we understand that action, it is necessary to know both. Yesterday, I went to see someone who was sick, and all the people were sitting around the table having tea. And the one woman had just come back from somewhere, and then she said, "Oh, I don't know how it came up. We weren't talking about Buddha." She said, "Oh, I've been trying to meditate, but I can't still my mind. It's impossible." So I said, of course, piping in, well, you don't really have to still your mind. You just have to have another view of all those thoughts that are coming up in your mind. She said, "What do you mean?" And the other girl was piping in across. She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you see, everything we see as solid. And this is our mistake. Because as soon as you see it as solid, you don't know the interaction between the two. and then you make the mistake, and then you become deluded and you can't get enlightened. So it was funny, the two women, I think the men didn't know what I was talking about. The two women were very happy with that answer, because it means you can meditate even if you can't still your mind, you can still meditate. So I just want to give you a quote back from the Circle of the Sun, where he says, self-cognizing wisdom is not part of everyday consciousness. Okay, we need to distinguish between the ordinary consciousness, which is Sem, and Rigpa, or the self-cognizing wisdom. We need to know the two, and then we can see how they interact. And he says, when the difference between them, we need to know when we want to get back to our Buddha nature and rely on it. And most of what Yeshe Tsogyal'S saying in her prayer is about this. This is why I'm bringing it up. One should rely, one's consciousness, that you have to make a major distinction, and a lot of you don't know about this, about Padak, which is primordial purity, and Kunzi, which is the alaya. Now, the alaya, you've also got the alaya consciousness. Sometimes the alaya is called the substrate, but the substrate is where all your thoughts and your karma and your everything, your thoughts and your feelings are registered. Whereas the actual primordial purity is pure and open. And these are just the expressions of it. That's why I told you that story. So one should rely, you've got to know that the alaya is what is in the human consciousness. Whereas when you go to the essence, the primordial purity, you're now in your total awareness, your total self-cognizing wisdom. You can ask me if you don't understand. But one should always rely on Rigpa and not on Sem. And that's very important, because Sem is one's ordinary consciousness, your intellect. And the ordinary states of consciousness are the source of one's perception and one's errors. All your erroneous behavior come out of that. Rigpa is illuminating and can guide us on the path. Ordinary consciousness is dependent on the workings of the body. And because of ordinary consciousness, Sem, we suffer all the afflictions, physical and mental. We suffer so badly. This is the activity aspect of consciousness, and its nature is ignorance, ignoring the truth of how things are. And because ordinary consciousness is not aware of itself, so it's susceptible to error and distortion. As soon as you've got that awareness, it changes everything. And if you look at this prayer, this is what Yeshe Tsogyal is saying. She's giving us the absolute entire A to Z of what these teachings are, from the beginning and coming to who we really can be when we are enlightened. I don't know if anybody wants to say anything. There's so much more I could say, but I don't want to get involved. But I'm happy to do it with a question. But just to mention, before going back to the prayer, that Lama Zangmo's talk that she gave at the new temple, when the new temple
Can I just ask you something?
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Am I understanding this, or I'm asking stupid questions? Your alaya consciousness is what you have for all your lifetimes. Your ordinary consciousness dies with each death, but your alaya consciousness follows you forever.
Yes.
Okay.
But the alaya consciousness, which is the highest of the ordinary consciousness, okay, all the other consciousness, the sense consciousnesses, the mind consciousness of Sem, all of those, the alaya is the only one that goes with you from lifetime to lifetime. But as soon as you clear it, as soon as you are aware of it, you automatically go into the primordial purity. It's like you could call the alaya or the kunzi a storehouse. It's the stuff we've stored as we go through ordinary embodiment. We've stored in the alaya consciousness. The alaya is the whole ground of our ordinary consciousness. The alaya consciousness is where everything is stored, and that consciousness goes with you from lifetime to lifetime. But when you learn through your primordial purity to read that consciousness, you know what you've got to do. You know what is being shown. You know, even when I was in London now, and every time I went through something I really wasn't enjoying, I kept looking in the mirror. What is this showing to me? What am I learning? Because that's in my alaya. That's in my alaya, in the kunzi, in my alaya consciousness. It is nothing to do with my primordial purity. And slowly, as you go towards the primordial purity, the alaya with all its imprints starts dissolving. And it's no problem anymore. But if you've got a repetitive imprint in the alaya, then it just goes with you, giving you hassles your whole life, giving you misperceptions, giving you ignorance, making you think that it's me and you, giving you duality, giving you this is separate from me. Can you all understand what I'm saying? So it's really important that you distinguish this, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to move into the primordial consciousness. Now, does that mean we just become clear and exquisite? No, because Buddhas know what we're about. They know about the kunzi, the alaya. They know about everything in our world. That's how they can help us. But they don't live in that consciousness. They live in the primordial consciousness. And when you can really understand this, your whole life will change. I mean, I really look at this so deeply. And I really look at every single time. I really went through a hard time in the UK now, for me. And I went through a hard time for millions of reasons. I won't go into them. As Karen says, they're boring. But what was very important was that I sat with that mirror and I asked myself every single day, what is this going on in my alaya consciousness? What is it for? And then I go and do my prayers, and then I go, is it for this? And I go, yes. Is it for that? And I go, yes. Is it for your ego? And I go, yes. Is it for this? I go all like that, and I go, yes, 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 yes. And then when I came home, and I get all the messages from everyone saying, hello, Melanie, so happy you're here. You, my gift, you, my love, you, my everything. Then I'm going, now what's this in my alaya consciousness? It's telling me the same thing. It's telling me no ego. It might be lovely, but it makes no difference whether something's lovely or awful, because it's the same. The primordial consciousness with its expression has same taste. That's what Yeshe Tsogyal's writing about in her prayer. Same taste. Read the alaya. Read it so you can change it and dissolve it. And that's the end of that. Can you understand, Gal? And argue with me. I'm happy. No question is stupid, because I think about this, I ponder it, I contemplate, and it's so important. And it's the theme in this prayer. It's showing you, she's saying in every sentence of this prayer, go to your primordial, to the Maha Guru. That's another word. It's not a person. It's your beautiful awakened consciousness. She says, go to it, feel it, let it work effortlessly through you, and then you're okay. So just to give you this last point about Lama Zangmo's talk on living and dying, she spoke about Kalu Rinpoche's advice to the long retreatants. Now, this is what he said to the long retreatants. He said, there's 6 realms of samsara, and these are 6 mentalities. What is a mentality? A mentality is a state of mind. From the hell realms to the hungry ghost, to the animal, to the human, to the jealous gods, to the God realm. They're just states of mind. And he said, it's like a hospital with 6 wards, okay? And there's only one way out, okay? One exit in which to have the best possibility to get out. And he said, your human realm is closest to the exit of the hospital. Such an interesting thing, isn't it? Because I'm coming to you, Tatiana, because he said, your human realm is very close to the exit of the hospital with its 6 wards, and because the human realm is closest to the exit. Why? Because we have to understand non-duality, no solid self, nothing, no ego, impermanence of everything if we want to exit to total liberation. If not to total liberation, then at least to the pure Buddha realms. This prayer tells us how to exit through having a human life. And the more I read it, the more poignant and amazing it is. Sorry, Tati, tell me what you want.
I have 2 questions, then I find this properly. One is Rigpa something we can describe with our intellect?
Okay.
And the other one is, can we notice if we're closer to the truth? And what is the difference between alaya consciousness and Rigpa?
So interesting what you're asking. So the first one, just go back to the first one.
Is Rigpa something we can describe with our own intellect?
No, not really. Okay, not really. You have to experience Rigpa. But in the compassion of the Buddha, he gives us a way of actually understanding it. So sometimes when I'm not getting it, I just look at the beautiful blue sky, but I don't just see blue sky. I think of that primordial purity, and I know that that blue sky, although it seems absolutely plain when it's really in full force, if you look carefully, you start to see little squiggles in it. And those squiggles are what we call awareness. And first, when we see awareness in the emptiness, when we see awareness, then we know that because that emptiness is not just empty, it's full of awareness. And that awareness is how things get created, how we get thoughts, how we get feelings, how we get beautiful, pure Buddha feels, how we get hell realms, how we get the realm. Because of the awareness, it can create anything. So when you look at the emptiness, which is Rigpa, it's absolutely pure emptiness. But when you look at the pure expression of emptiness, even the impure expression, there is Rigpa too. So Rigpa is that spark, that awareness that can really create everything, you know, for us, for the world, for everything that is there. That Rigpa is in both Hadak and Nundrup, you know, primordial purity and its expression. It's all there. And so this is such an interesting question. And when we have our discussion next week, let's come back to all of this, because it's really You know, I love your feedback and I love you to tell your things. And I love, for instance, what Karen said. She just cut right through my bullshit this morning, okay? And that was wonderful. I could take it. I think it's marvelous because it just made me realize it's all gone. Nothing's left there. What's the point of talking about it? Only what I can give you that might be useful to you is what was your second question go again? Because it was also very interesting. I wanted to
what's the difference between Alaya consciousness and Rigpa? And part of this question is if obviously if we can perceive Rigpa through experience,
yes.
It confuses me a little bit regarding skandhas. Obviously, we are perceiving and in a sort of skandhas sort of way, no no's, no this, no that. So how does that translate into absolute thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you see what's interesting is the way we see as ordinary human sentient beings, we see the coarseness of the expression. So we see all the rubbish of the expression, okay? And we see it as solid, and we see this as an ego, and we see, you know, we see all of these things. Now you may ask yourself, oh, so do you have to get rid of that in order to be able to see the purity? No, you don't have to get rid of anything, because anything that is expressed is actually pure. You just have to see it differently. And that's what we're learning to do, to see in, like Gail's question is, you know, this kunzi, this alaya, what is it? Doesn't it go with you from lifetime to lifetime? Yes, it sticks. It's the one part of the human consciousness that sticks. Why? Because this is the hospital ward. This is the human realm. This is the schoolroom where we've come to work it out. As soon as we've worked it out, now that same scenario changes. And number one, we are not separate from it. And number two, it becomes made of rainbow light and beautiful beings and Buddha realms and all kinds of things. It becomes that just through our perception different. So that which is expressed, we can't take it and throw it in the bin. We can't throw it away and say, oh my God, I'm an angry person. I must get rid of my anger. We would be losing something if we said that. We must say, let me see this anger for what it is. Not, I want to get rid of my anger. Because if you get rid of your anger, you might be putting beautiful rainbow light into the dustbin. Okay, so it's better to say, what is this anger? Let me look at it. Oh, it's mirror-like wisdom. What does that mean? And we ask ourselves again, and you can ask me all these questions. Same with pride. What is pride? I had pride. I spoke lowly to a being, and that was my pride, my arrogance, okay? I obviously had a lot of pride in previous lifetime. And what is pride? What wisdom is pride? It's the equalizing wisdom. What's equalizing wisdom? It's actually the wisdom of same taste. It's in this prayer, right through the same taste. It means whether it's good or bad, it's no difference to you. So when you're looking at the alaya and you're looking at the primordial purity, you've just got to learn to see the alaya differently, and then it becomes the primordial purity, the wisdom. This is a very deep subject. I've spent years pondering this subject, and do not think that I am an expert, Tatiana, because I am not an expert. I just watch this so carefully. I read this prayer and I think to myself, oh my God, you read an ordinary thing, an ordinary life. Great Guru, bless me that in all my future lives, in the palaces of pure realm, I may commit myself to you and never be parted from you. So great. What a wonderful prayer. Then you read it again. with a different perception, and she's going, great guru. And who's she talking to? Is she talking to Padmasambhava over there? Yeah, we do need Padmasambhava over there sometimes. Okay. But Padmasambhava is our own Maha Guru. And she's saying, bless me that I may commit myself to you and never be parted from you. And Zongsa says, every single thing in this prayer must be achievable. Otherwise, it's useless. So he goes, how can it be achievable? She's standing at Gungtang Pass and she's saying goodbye, and Guru Rinpoche says, bye-bye, I have to go off to tame the Rakshasas. He's still taming them so that the human realm can go on and not be invaded by the Rakshasas. And he says, I have to go. So he says, how can she say, may I never be parted from you, be committed from you? He says, it's got to be achievable. And it is achievable. As soon as you see the Maha Guru inside, it's totally achievable. And then you go on with this amazing prayer, you know, to have devotion. He says, then that one we talked about, may the blessings of your body, speech, and mind mature my body, speech, and mind, and may I receive empowerment for the profound stages of creation and perfection, and put them into practice. You can go back to that I spent a lot of time. But what does it mean? May the blessings of your body, speech, and mind come to me. Yes, when I'm doing Guru Yoga, I think of Guru Rinpoche's body, speech, and mind coming into mine, or the Guru body, speech, and mind. But it's not theirs. Theirs can't come into yours. Theirs can only be a match that lights yours, reminds you of yours. So when you're asking for that, you are asking for them to awaken and give you the pure body, speech, and mind, the Vajra body, the enlightened body, speech, and mind. You're saying to them, give it to me. And what is she saying after that? And then please, from this, let me have the empowerment for the profound stages of creation and perfection, and put them into practice. Now think of that. Creation is creating yourself as the deity. Perfection, or you can call it dissolution, is dissolving it back. So what's she talking about? She's talking about Hadak, the primordial purity, and Lundrup, the spontaneous presence. So what you're doing in every practice is you're creating yourself as the deity, whatever the deity is. And that's why whenever I'm talking to my Taras in the morning, I'm always talking inside. I'm going, Green Tara, please let me have your action accomplishment. Please let me be that. Let me be beautiful inside and swift. And White Tara is a wish-fulfilling wheel. I'm not looking at White Tara there. I'm looking at White Tara inside. I want to be a wish-fulfilling wheel. I want White Tara. So when you create, you are using Lundrup, the spontaneous presence, you are using Lundrup, the spontaneous perfection, when you create yourself as a deity. And when you dissolve it, you're going back into Kadak, the primordial purity. So perfect. And that's what we were talking about. And then the next verse, now still the demons of false view, sickness, negative forces, and obstacles. So he says, you want to get the false view. What's the false view? I'm an individual and I need to have my rights, and I will vote for who I want, and I will have my say, and I will tell you what to do. Wrong view. There never was an I. She's telling you this. And may I increase my following and resources so that all my wishes are fulfilled. I want to be the wish-fulfilling wheel. And then we went on to the next verse. In cemeteries, mountain retreats, snow ranges, and other places with all the right qualities, May I constantly practice the profound meditation of quintessential view. So Dzogyal'S says about that, when he talks about that and he talks about the prayer, he says, those places just isolate you. They're isolated places. They're where the bodies are in the cemeteries. And he says, if we go to isolated places, which I'm absolutely dying to do at the moment, he says, then we will find our true nature, but only by the power of the Maha Guru's blessing. Everything is essentialized, trusting the Guru. So when you go through these these verses, you actually realize how amazing this prayer is, because each one is really the one that tells you how to do it. Comes back to the same thing. And those two that I started off with are the two that we need to be aware of. Now, today, I want to quickly go through it, and then I'll give you a lot of, anyone got an urgent question? Because I want to go through the next verse because it's also very important. Anyone want to say or ask? With pleasure. Because then I want to go through this next verse, verse 6. I don't know if it's hard for you to get it on, Bern, but if not, I'll just read it. It's very short. Let me see. Yes, there we go, at the top. Move down. Right. As a result of my practice, may I accomplish the 4 activities: increasing, subjugating, magnetizing, and pacifying. Shouldn't be in that order, but anyway. And compelling gods and rakshasas to subservience, may I protect the Buddha's doctrine. Now that verse is beyond, okay? It's really beyond. Thank you, Bern. I'm going to talk about it. I just want to make one point from that verse. When she says compelling gods and rakshasas to subservience, she's taking gods, who are the highest samsaric realm, and rakshasas, who are the lowest, and she's putting them together. She's saying there's no difference between the highest and the lowest. It's one taste. So she's asking for them to be subservient, both the gods and the demons, both of them, because we're going to one taste here. But what is she saying? As a result of my practice, may I accomplish the 4 activities. Now listen carefully. We have 5 aspects to us, which I've spoken a lot about, when we are enlightened. We have enlightened body, which is Vajra body, that never gets old, and that can go on and on and on. And sometimes I think, oh, to have Vajra body must be the most wonderful thing when you don't get tired, old, and wrinkled, you know, especially the tired part must be the most wonderful thing, Vajra body. Vajra speech, the most perfect speech, enlightened speech. It is a speech that every single person in the audience gets it totally and utterly. And each one gets it at their level. That's what Vajra speech, enlightened speech is about, okay? Third, I'm not going into too much detail. Please write down your questions and we can come back to this next week if you want, because then you ask your own question. Vajra mind, that is the pure, enlightened mind. Okay, we've talked about this over and over again. Next, number 4, Vajra or enlightened qualities. Qualities. Now, if you look at all the deities, each of them have a particular quality. Chenrezi represents compassion. The medicine Buddha represents healing. This one represents that, wisdom. Manjushri represents wisdom. Those are the enlightened qualities Are there really deities? There really are enlightened qualities. As soon as you have these three, you get the enlightened qualities. You don't even have to try for them. They're just absolutely there in your being, okay? They're just the most beautiful qualities: compassion, love, understanding, wisdom. All of those are the qualities. That's number 4. What's number 5 to go to this verse? The activities, the enlightened activities are number 5. And that's what she is referring to in this verse. Now, those enlightened activities, she puts the 4, okay? The reason why you put 4 activities and not 5 is because in all the Bardo teachings, in all the Bardo prayers, they give you the 4 activities. You look so nice and warm, Bern. I love that. Your bed. Okay. Wonderful. Take it to your dream state. So when you look at the 4 quality, the 4 activities, the 5th one only comes once you've got the 4. The 5th one is the wisdom, the perfected action activity. So it's spontaneous activity when you are enlightened. And, you know, when someone said to the Buddha, you've been on the earth plane for 80 years. And, you know, how did you manage to teach all these thousands of people? He said, I wasn't aware of an I. It was simply enlightened activity passing through me. Now that is the 5th one, but you need to develop the other 4 before you get the 5th one. And that's why in many of the Bardo prayers, they say the 4 enlightened activity, not the 5, but there actually are 5. Now, can you use those enlightened activities now? Yes, 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 and yes, you can. For sure. But, big but, the ego has to go out of the picture in order for the enlightened activity to be performed through you, to you as well. Because Zongsa, when he does that verse, he talks about it being in you. He talks about it to you, not to all beings outside. And I like talking about those 4 activities to all the beings outside of us as well, how you can benefit beings with the 4 activities. So I just want to say, do not think, oh, well, those activities are wonderful for an enlightened person. Because when you become aware of them, when you ponder them, when you contemplate them, when you allow them, you can be doing that right now, not only when you enlighten. As soon as you have that beautiful activity, like Tati sends me these, she says every time she sees a picture of Guru Rinpoche, she thinks I'll enjoy the picture, so she sends it to me, even in the UK. So it's beautiful. She says, it just makes me think now, every time I see a picture, I'm starting to think of how I, with a mandala of Guru Rinpoche, can allow those enlightened activities to go through me. And all of you can do this if you just stop the ego from taking control. So let's look at these 4 activities, even if we only get this far, I'm sorry. The first one is called pacification, the pacifying activity. To me, this is one of the most wonderful, wonderful, wonderful enlightened activities. I was in a dream when I came back from the UK. I was in a little bit of a turmoil. I had a lot of dream. I actually saw, we both saw that enlightened master just before I met her. We both had a dream of him. That was a beautiful dream. But I've been going to realms I don't know why I haven't gone to realms for years and years, not enlightened realms, the really lower realms. I've started going to the realms again. So I'm in the realm about 2 nights ago, and there's this little boy, and he hasn't got legs. He's quite a specimen, and I have a great compassion for this little boy because he can't walk or anything like that. And so I'm involved with the mother and this child who's got this, who can't walk, and he's got these legs and everything. And then we go out, and there is this most peculiar being. I just remember he had little eyes. He was quite ugly, and he saw this little boy or little girl, whatever she was, without the legs. And he didn't go racist. He went raceless. Raceless in my dream, raceless, he said to this child. And I went up to this guy and I pointed my finger in his face and I said to him, with tears in my eyes, do you know what you are doing? Do you know how long you're going to stay in these realms? Do you have any idea of what you are creating by saying those terrible words to this little boy? And then I don't know what happened after that. But when I woke up, I said, Melanie, you should have done a pacifying activity, not a subjugating activity first. Subjugating is this and knocking them out, okay? I should have done a pacifying activity. I should have said to him something like, it's so strange that you don't look that good yourself. And maybe you and I should look at that before you point a finger. Pacifying. So what Tsogyal'S says is, he says, at least by trusting the Maha Guru, at least when we are tormented by feeling alienated, depressed, abandoned, this is an outlet to the inner Guru, and that will pacify us. So he's looking at ourselves being pacified. When I teach those enlightened activities, I'm looking at, particularly because for years I did the chur practice. And you know, in the chur practice, Machik looks at this beast who's protecting the river, who won't let her come through. And she suddenly gets this unbelievable compassion. And what she does is she chops her body up and dissolves it into nectar. And then she feeds the demon with the nectar of her body. That's what the whole chur practice is about. CHOD with 2 dots on the O. And so it's called a pacifying activity. What happens is, in this practice, you dissolve your whole body, and then you take, then Vajrayogini comes and she makes a brew of your body and everything, and then you take the cup and then you give it to all the demons, all the beings that are really bad. I used to, when I was doing the practice, I used to give it to all the ugly leaders of the world, hoping it could pacify them in some way. Because before you can change, you need to pacify. That's what a mother does to a baby. She gives a dummy so the baby can be pacified before you can feed it or put it to sleep or anything. Think about this. It's pacifying, calmer, emotional thought, states that people are in, illness and evil influences, malevolent forces, negativity, obscuration. Sometimes when a person is talking out loud and really being ugly, instead of going for them, you can pacify them. You can actually say something like, I really understand how you feel, and let's examine this. And then you slowly change what they are doing. You know, this is such a vast subject on its own, but let's just go through the 4 activities, and then we'll quickly do a meditation. The next one is increasing activity. So you can do pacifying with anyone when you've got someone angry in front of you. Think of pacifying them in some gentle, compassionate way. The second one is increasing. And Tsogyal'S says, when a person is content, then they are rich. Otherwise, we're always trying to acquire more, and there's no contentment, so there's no increasing activity. When you look at increasing, you can look at white Tara, she and red Tara, they both. She increases the lifespan. She increases your merit. She helps you to increase your merit. You can help people. You can sometimes say to people, you know, if you would do such and such, it would give you such amazing merit, splendor and wealth, the realization of self-knowing wealth, wakefulness, happiness, flourishing Dharma. You increase. So what you're doing in this activity is you're increasing the beauty and everything that you have, making it really feasible for other people, instead of fighting with them and putting them down and doing things like that. That increasing activity is really important. And white Tara increases your lifespan. And some people come to me and they say to me, can you help me? I've been diagnosed with cancer and I've got 6 months to live, and what can I do? Then you say to them, you know what? Why I always say to people that ask me, I have no power to increase at all, except my Maha Guru does have the power. But then I ask them, why do you want to live longer? Then they go, I've got so much to do. Then I go, like what? No, I want to watch my children grow up. I want to help my grandchildren, and I want to do this, and I want to do this degree. And I go, you know what? If you want to bargain with the lords of karma, you better have a better reason to extend your life. Maybe you better tell that you want to grow spiritually, not that you want to attach yourself more to things. So with increasing, we help people. The third one is magnetizing. And Tsogyal'S says, why can't we magnetize? He says, because we're nervous, fidgety, so we can't magnetize. We must have confidence. To magnetize, you must have a vibe so others can relax. Now, magnetizing, you must have beautiful speech. You want to, when you look at magnetize, you want to bring under your control all phenomena of samsara and nirvana, comprising the prana mind displays. Bring the humans under control, the kings, the leaders, the scholars, the non-human. We've got to have the ability to magnetize. Now, I'd like you to talk to us a bit about that, not now, Tati, but how what red Tara magnetizes. It's one of her beautiful activities. It's really when you magnetize, you actually bring people into something without imposing on them. You magnetize them to a different way, nothing with ego. Like if you look at some of the leaders of the world who have got magnetization, but they're magnetizing for their egos, that's not an enlightened activity. If you're doing things so that you'll get the credit, so that you'll get the thing, it's not called magnetizing at all. That's just magnetizing for your ego, and people fall under your spell, but it doesn't, it's absolutely useless. And finally, subjugating. Okay, now that was Guru Rinpoche's main thing. And he says, how do we subjugate? We have no agenda other than trusting the Guru, he says. And I've got in my subjugating, through wrathful compassion, the enemies, the obstructors, the misguiders who are not tamed by peaceful means, you summon, you expel, you avert, you destroy when necessary, but never with your own agenda. So when Guru Rinpoche came to Tibet, he subjugated all the demons, all the beings who were imposing themselves so that the Buddha Dharma couldn't go in. He had wars with them until they were subjugated, and then they came and asked to be Dharma protected. That's why when you look at the pictures of the Dharma protected, they're always like this, with 5 heads and claws, because he subjugated them, and then they submitted, and they came to do beautiful things after that, because they had a lot of power but their power was for their own ego and not for the benefit of beings. Sure, I've talked a lot. And then that brings you to the spontaneously accomplished activity which comes through you. That's actually the fifth activity. But remember, in this verse, she says, may I accomplish, as a result of my practice, may I accomplish the four activities, and compelling gods and Rakshasas to subservience, may I protect the Buddha's doctrine. So she's saying the high and the low, same taste. May I use those four activities to really help them. Now, this is such a huge subject. That's why I can't rush this prayer, because this is a whole subject on its own. And so is the bodhicitta one, a whole subject on its own. Some I can go through quite quickly with, because we know a lot. But don't you think don't you think that verse is astounding in a lot of ways? Because what is she saying, Yeshe Tsogyal? By saying that and then hiding it as a term, sealing it for us to find. When we find the four activities, can we allow them to be done through us? Can we benefit many, many beings through them? I can't give you more. I've got so many teachings, so many articles, so many things, because this prayer does it, for me. And I can't do it all, otherwise you all go home and say, phew, I'm exhausted. I wanted to do the verse on bodhicitta, and I came across this in the two books that I have. Ringu Toku, in the Lazy Lama, he did a beautiful little booklet on bodhicitta, and I thought it applies so beautifully here, but we can't do it today. But shall we do a quick meditation? And does anybody want to ask and say? There's a lot to think about. So that's why I thought, even let me not bring this next time. Let me really, really, really allow you to ask all your questions and how you interpret this, and the four activities, and not only the four activities, the enlightened activity, but also the many, many qualities that we have. Are we using these qualities? Do we just go back to our old habits all the time? Let's do a few minutes to just ponder some of this. You won't be able to hear this. I'm not going to put it on, but I'll hear it anyway. You can't hear that, can you? The gong. Okay. So let everybody go into their lovely meditation posture. Remember that central channel. The central channel is exactly where everything happens, just as it is. It's not good and bad, it just is. It's the enlightened channel. When we die, we need to go from the heart up the enlightened channel, out through the Brahma aperture, and at least to a Buddha field, if not to our primordial purity. So just take one very deep breath, breathing in all that we are. So beautiful. And breathing out a letting go process. The ego, the duality, the negative emotion, the pain, the suffering, the grievances, the grief, all the things that you feel so negative about people. Just breathe them out. Remember all that I'm teaching, which is all that Yeshe Tsogyal has put into this Dharma, which has been sealed away for a long time, to be found for now in this degenerate time. Sometimes when I think of AI, I get the creeps. But the point of the matter is, nothing and no one can take over your beautiful awakened nature, because there is nothing to take it over. So I want you now to see what a life would be if you had enlightened body, speech, mind, and the qualities. I want you to think about how the qualities could come through you. Real compassion, real understanding, where you stretch yourself out to somebody else to understand them. Real wisdom. All the beautiful qualities of your open nature, healing, understanding, empathy, gentleness. And then the activities. I want you to just ponder those activities through you. Pacifying is where you reach out of your limited self to really understand someone else. It's difficult at first because you've got your agenda and the other person doesn't make your agenda feel good. But when you use pacification, it's got nothing to do with you. It's got to do with the gentle, soothing, understanding, empathy. Think of all the people you've misunderstood. In pacifying, you have a beautiful ability to touch right into them and calm them down. And increasing whatever you can see after the pacifying, you want to increase. So in whatever way you are able to increase their good qualities, their lifespan, their illnesses, their mind poisons, you increase it by allowing that beautiful fountain of light through you into them. And you can do that right now. Magnetizing. Think of all the goodness that you've got in you. And think how you try and justify it. And you try and shout what you want to say. Magnetizing the enlightened quality, the enlightened activity is when you allow beautiful speech to come through you. And it draws people in. Think of even your children and grandchildren. Without you shouting or doing what you normally do with your ego, you just magnetize them to want more of what you're saying. Like I saw my two little grandchildren trying to kill a bug in the garden. So I quickly took these little gnomes that I'd bought and I said they were nature spirits. And I said, come, let's go and find all the nature spirits who look after all the animals and the bugs, and they care for them, magnetizing them, not to shout at them for what they're doing is wrong, but to magnetize them into a different way of trying to think and do whatever they are doing, and how it's so cruel when you just torture bugs, magnetizing people with beautiful speech that just comes through you, and subjugating. Sometimes we subjugate, even in our human form, just with a short, sharp ending of whatever that person is doing. So sometimes it's just a little thing. With Guru Rinpoche, it was a big activity of fighting them until they submitted. But why did they submit? Because he was able to reveal in the subjugation the beauty of what he had, because he had no ego agenda. As soon as you want to subjugate for your own purposes and your own ego, and because you want someone to be, it doesn't work. And then finally, your beautiful action accomplishment. Just when you say to yourself, I don't know what happened today. I went to all these people and I just managed to rescue them, do this, do that, tell them this, whatever. It was as though it was enlightened activity happening through me. I made myself the instrument of that. And that's what's important about this beautiful verse in the prayer. So important. So when you go to the Maha Guru within, all these things can happen through you. So everybody, I've given a lot of things. I didn't expect it to go so many, but it's like a waterfall because I haven't been teaching for a while. So it's terrible. It just happens, you know. I think we'll end and then I'll stay if anybody wants to ask. But please do me a favor. Next week, there's a lot of material here, but also other material that you might have. May not even have to do with what we did today, because I think that Yeshe Tsogyal's prayer is really from A to Z in the Dharma. So if you've got your own questions, and I don't care what they are, please ask them next week. And please, if you want to, send them to me or send them to Bern, and then she'll send them on to me, so that, you know, if there is something that needs to be researched, then I can, but otherwise we could just do it spontaneously. But it's really important that we deal with all the stuff that all of you want to, because there's so much, it's so rich. You know, what I did in the UK, I actually ordered all the new books that I wanted, because I had an empty suitcase from the children's presents. So I brought all these books home. So I brought about 12 new books. Okay? So you'll be getting lots of material and lots of new stuff that I'm going to study in these books. Absolutely exquisite, exquisite books that I really wanted. And so we'll just carry on. Those that want it, we'll just carry on with what we have to do. And I want to have these discussions. Let's see how they work out. And we'll take it from there. But Bern, let's dedicate. Let's dedicate to all the people. Let's really dedicate these teachings to peace in the world mostly. Because there's so many wars and there's so many peace negotiations going on. And I just pray that the leaders can take their egos out, and that we can have peace, and that the people of Palestine can find a life that they were able to have. It's really very distressing to see what's going on. And the people of Israel can have a life where they don't have to be defending themselves anymore. There's no need. There's enough for everyone. And in Ukraine, the terror that's going on in Ukraine, you know, that war's got to come to an end. And let's pray that the leaders have enough that they can. Let's hope that whatever we dedicate from today could really help all the people and all the leaders and all the people suffering from illness and everything else. Through this merit, may all beings attain omniscience, may all obscurations fall away from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may all beings be freed. Sonam diye tamchezi pane topne nepe dranam pamshene jegana ji balak tropaye sipe sole doa drowarsho.